I want to touch a little bit on the future for 47G for Utah. Now, the governor has, there's two things. First, he's talked about five, what does he refer to it as? The five focus areas, right?
Targeted industry clusters. Yep.
You know, that sounds so much more fancy than targeted industry clusters. We'll go with that.
Okay.
Sounds like a breakfast cereal. Industry clusters, with post cereal. Sorry, Governor Cox about that. But, aerospace and defense is one of those targeted industry clusters. And as part of that, there's some initiatives that maybe you can touch on regarding gearing up for the Olympics and beyond the Olympics, the future of aerospace and defense, and some cool initiatives that we're doing right here in Utah that we are proactively being the trendsetters for. So anyways, I really teed it up way too much for you there. So I'll let you dive into that. Thank you.
No, that's a softball. It is Utah's moment right now. And we need to be very deliberate. We're one of just a handful of cities, areas in the whole world that are being blessed by the Olympics for a second time.
Yeah, 2034.
Markets don't get that opportunity. We have a 10-year time frame to make policy decisions that will allow us to bring infrastructure in and further development. We can take a step back from an economic perspective and say, we're going to host the world. So what does that mean for our kids? What exposure, what public-private partnerships can we form to enhance our education? We had some of the Olympic committee in our office last week talking about partnerships. And this is a really unique moment for the state. And look, whether or not we host the Olympics, there's a lot of great things happening here that men and women have contributed to and created for years.
Right.
Now, one of the initiatives that we're focused on at 47G that I'm excited about is we call it Project Alta. We branded that initiative. Alta standing for Air Logistics Transportation Alliance.
And a nice little shout out to Alta, the ski industry here. Yeah.
It was fitting for sure. We think that Utah could be the leader of advanced air mobility, moving people and cargo via manned and unmanned aircraft, hybrid electric air taxis.
Yeah. I call them like manned drones, essentially, or man-sized drones, right?
Sleek
air
taxis.
Taxis. Yeah.
They're so awesome to look at. You can just sit and stare at one. They're just awesome. Rotor-based.
Yeah. Well, and what better state to do it in than where 1 in every 10 helicopter pilots is trained in the nation right here at SUU, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to throw in that
shout out to
plug.
Mike Maurer and the great work he's doing. I can't thank him enough. He's an asset here in the community for sure. But look, we're going to welcome the world to Utah, and let's put on a good display.
Let's make it so cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's no better way to experience Utah than at 15,000, 20,000 feet, looking down at our mountains.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, here in Iron County, we do fly Iron County with our state legislators every year, where Mike and his crew takes those legislators and flies them over Cedar breaks to show off how beautiful it is.
Oh, it is.
And
it is.
Not only highlight the outdoor beauty and the quality of life, but to show how that ties in with what I was, that cliche of live, work, and play, right? It's all about that quality of life.
We don't get to experience the birth of too many new industries.
Right.
Right.
Everything's been invented, or so it seems.
Yeah. And on the technology side, you could make an argument that, we saw a D2C business model come to fruition. Uber wasn't around 12, 13 years ago. Even Instagram and so we've seen some really cool things. I don't think we're going to live through anything that's going to be more transformational than air mobility. Walmart recently announced an exploratory process that they're going to run because look, they think that with their footprint here in the U.S., 90% of the U.S. population lives within a mile of a supercenter. And so they're saying, well, what if we leveraged our real estate for transportation? So creating vertical takeoff and landing pads called vertiports, installing them on the rooftops of all of our Walmarts nationwide, creating a network, and then hired an aircraft manufacturer, an OEM, to come in, and we could run our own airlines essentially. So, hey, I want to fly to South Jordan. I live in South Jordan, right? I want to fly from South Jordan to Salt Lake. I will call my Uber Lyft, or I will call my air taxi, piloted or not. They'll pick me up, and I can fly right down to the super center in Salt Lake, get off, go down, get a drink, and call my Uber, right? As you look at Utah, you think, okay, well, our largest metropolitan area is Salt Lake City. Your 15-minute flight to Utah State and Logan. Your 12-minute flight to Ogden. 7-minute flight to Provo. 12-minute flight to Park City. 40 minutes to Moab. Think about that. Hey, the wife and kids, we want to get together. We want to go to Moab for the weekend. Well, good. I don't have to go spend 8 hours in the car with young kids screaming,
with all the stops and the drive.
And instead, I can pay whatever, affordable price, and I can be in Moab in 40 minutes and be back for work Monday.
Right.
The amount of possibilities that comes is really interesting on the passenger transport side, but on the cargo transport side as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And cargo transport, I think, is really some of the proving ground for the passenger side.
It is. Yeah, community acceptance, right? It's much easier to get behind a new technology if it's not carrying people at first.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this sounds cheesy, but I mean, being an 80s kid, I think of the Jetsons, right? There's George Jetson. He's getting out of his little flying car and it folds up into his suitcase, you know, and that sounds so absurd and like not a reality. But here's a good comparison. I used to think that watching like Star Trek, and they'd have their little tablets. And now, how many tablets do we watch? My computer is a computer / tablet. And then today we were at New Era Manufacturing, and we were seeing some of their equipment, and all the buttons they push aren't buttons. It's a screen. And when we were there, I thought, oh my gosh, it's like we're on the USS Enterprise here. Yep. They just tap those buttons.
Yeah.
And so the reality of air mobility is not as far-fetched as I think people may think it to be.
And I would even just say this, it's not far-fetched at all.
Yeah.
I've been to these OEMs, I've seen the aircraft, I've seen them fly, I've sat in them, I've done the simulations myself.
Wow.
Like the technology's here. Whether or not we capitalize on it, it's here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so this is Utah's moment.